The world is changing rapidly, and a new paradigm of leadership is emerging. A way of leading with more heart and soul. And on this fifth season of the Vulnerable Power Show, we share the practical insights, leading edge skills, and potent wisdom to equip you for this future paradigm unfolding today. Learn from visionary leaders, spiritual entrepreneurs, innovative founders, all who have done the inner work and soul searching to transform and step up into their calling and mission, leading with their vulnerable power. These soulful and heartfelt deep dives will teach you how to develop self-mastery, step into your soul's calling, embrace your gifts and genius, and lead from a service-oriented mindset, so you too can be empowered to do this transformative inner work and step up as the ascending leader you came here to be. Together, let's bring more heart and soul back to leadership around the world. Greetings and welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Vulnerable Power Show, well underway, season 5. And today, I get the pleasure of introducing a really dear soul brother who I've known for a very long time that is going to come on and really take the lead here on what it means to cultivate financial freedom. And I love to introduce the guests and how we met and the fortuitousness of it. And we've had a yogi banker, we've had a heart-centered financial annuities person, and we now have somebody who is brand and firm is steeped in a mystical name, Illumination Wealth. And my buddy here, Matt Rinkey, is here to share some really potent insider knowledge, practical tips on what it means to cultivate not only financial freedom, to build a holistic wealth legacy, a real true wealth, not only monetary wealth. And this subject that we're going to explore today is near and dear to me, and it's very important. And it's very important, especially for us do-gooders, those that really are here on a mission or an impact, because oftentimes that worth, wealth, things we're going to dive into today. So without further ado, the proverbial hello. Matt, thank you for being here, and thank you for taking the time and your trust to co-create. We've known each other a long time, and it's my honor to be able to spotlight you for a change since you've done that for me so many times. So how you doing today, my man?
Great. Yeah. Happy to be here with you, Haas. It's been a great long time relationship, and just always looking forward to seeing where that next conversation goes. We are.
We're going to dive deep, and we're going to literally figure out what it means to actually have a wealth legacy. And let's start at the beginning. This question I don't think I've ever asked you, and if I have, it eludes me. Let's start with the creation, the founding of Illumination Wealth, because I sense a lot of what you're going to share is the path least taken, because I don't know that many people in the financial industry that carry the depth that you do. And I don't mean to insult the industry. So let's start there. How did Illumination Wealth come about in terms of why did you even choose that name? And let's flow from there in terms of being a founder and creating your own firm after being in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. So taking a step back, the name evolved. The real beginnings of this probably showed up when I was born. This journey for me was probably from the day I was born. I was gifted shares of stock that I eventually found out about when I was 10, 11 years old. Started tracking this stock on America Online, or maybe Prodigy, back in the day. I think that's going to age me quite a bit. And so, the financial markets, investing, wealth creation, I think always had was an interest of mine. At the same token, where I was, how I received that stock came from a family member. It was a gift from the day I was born from my grandfather. And this brings us along. And as I got into investing as a teenager, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. My grandfather had a business who built it successfully, never had much of a financial education, just the school of hard knocks, the real world, and built a blue collar business that did very well. Within a handful of years of exiting the business to be financially free, lost the vast majority of his wealth. Didn't have the plan, didn't have the enlightenment of who his advisors were, who his guides were on the journey. Went through it alone and was taken advantage of, mistakes made. And, this was kind of happening in the background as a teenager, for me, all this stuff and the conversations that the family was having. And then as I matured, had my own career, worked at, I would say, like a family office for a period of time where we were managing money for, not for third parties, just for a family. Didn't really have any end clients, end people that money was touching beyond if we did well, I did well. If we did
Mm.
well, this wealthy family did well. So it was an incredible learning ground, right? Unlimited resources, opportunities, but at the end of the day, it felt in some ways selfish, right? Like I could do really well, but who's this impacting? And then Great
Mm.
Recession happens. Was working at another firm with some other, partners of ours or previous colleagues of mine. And, similarly, I had, doing research, finding really interesting investment opportunities. And then, the Great Recession happens and then, had to part ways from that group. It wasn't an alignment of what our
Mm.
investment strategy was with the overall firm. And so at that time, 2008, I started to get calls from different, just friends of mine. What should we be doing? The market was crashing. People were losing their homes. A lot of things were going on, and I was trying to figure out what's that next thing in my career, in my stage. Do I partner with some previous colleagues of mine and start a new investment fund? I'm starting to get phone calls from people that knew that I was in the investment world. What should we be doing? And I figured maybe there's an opportunity here for me to combine the ability to help others with my own interests and experiences and expertise. And that's when started my own, firm in 2009, early 2010. I would say 2010 was the first full year. There was never any experience of, hey, I'm leaving this firm and I'm going to go bring clients with me. No, that was nothing. It was just some friends that might have had an old, 401k with a few bucks in it. That's like, here's your start, Matt. Here's your start. Or how can you help me with this? And so those were the beginning days. And it's just been an evolution since, right? Trying to help people through experiences that I had, starting my own business, buying properties, starting a family, all these things. How do I combine the advice beyond this investment account that is
Mm.
so esoteric to a 25-year-old,
Mm.
not touch it for 30 years, to real world life impacting advice is where I wanted to take my business and take Illumination Wealth.
I love that. So where did the name come from?
Yeah, the name I would say was really just something insightful. I wanted it to be, more about our own um, kind of insights. I
Mm.
wanted it to be about clarity. And that's where illumination came from. I believe I was kind of reading, thinking about it on a plane flight somewhere, the name, and I was reading, I can't remember exactly the book that I was reading, but, illumination, that word showed up in a book that I was reading, and it just really kind of hit home. Like we want to be the guides. We want to be able to, enlighten people. We want to be able to have that clarity, and having, illumination, just, kind of
That's
brought that.
interesting. Because, yeah, you're going off of resonance. I mean, that's how I got the download. I call it, an insight thing dropping in. And it seems like, yeah, that the kernel there that really stood out the most was the book guiding you and then the word. And then it was like, oh, this really feels congruent. So I knew bits of this having known you for over a decade now, that, you had your grandfather involved in all this. And I vaguely remember the stocks that you mentioned. Now, you said to unpack a couple of things you said there. You said that you wanted to help others with your own interest. What do you like about money? In other words, I personally don't have. I mean, you've come to know this about me. I've learned a lot from you over the years, and it. What is your affinity, or when you say these interests towards wealth or money, what is it about that industry that, on a soul level, on a human level, or on a, let's say, internal level, however you want to word it, is really like, ooh, this is fun or passionate for me? What
Yeah.
is it about wealth, money, currency that interests you, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, to me, it's a game, right? It's a game. Like, how do we build a business? How do I build an investment portfolio? There's a challenging aspect to it, and even like, competitive, but not. I don't need. It's not about competing with others. It's about, what can I do? How can I learn? How can I solve this puzzle? How can I make something better? How can I generate a return on my investment? And so all those things kind of came to be, and I enjoyed, as a kid, I like sports, I like athletics, and combining that business and investing is sports and just in another world. And I always enjoyed math, I always enjoyed accounting, and so it's just the confluence of all these factors that have brought this forth.
Before we get into some of the stuff I want to get into in terms of what it was like to be a founder, because we haven't really gone into the mindset of founding a business, a entrepreneurial mindset, so to speak. It's interesting because the other day, they dropped in to bring up some more of the ancestral components because we are going to get
Sure.
into wealth and generational wealth. And you already spoke about how you had experience in a family office. And for those, before we start to unpack the foundation, what is a family office? Because I'm going to play the newbie here, as I oftentimes do, because some of the audience may be joining from you, they may be joining from me, and they will be vast amounts of people that may or may not have an experience with these words. So, what is a family office in terms of your industry? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, there's different ways a family office might show up. I would say it's basically how a family administers and manages the entirety of their wealth, right? And so
And these are
from
big families usually, right? Like the Rockefellers or
you
really
think about the big
huger
families,
estates.
yeah, Bill Gates has family office. A lot of people create their own family offices, and there's fractional family offices, there's multi-family offices. At the end of the day, when I think about entrepreneurship and people have a business and they identify as like their business is their business. I don't believe the business is the business. The wealth is the business. The business is one component of their overall wealth. And so we need to be operating from that higher level perspective than oftentimes people think about in their own financial world.
Ooh, I
And
love it.
so different family offices might operate differently. There's full functioning family offices that handle all administrational aspects. There's others that are really focused on acquiring businesses or making passive investments. I think of it as the totality of one's financial life and managing their family office from that perspective. And so, uh,
It's very holistic, and that's what I appreciate about you and what we're going to get into. So you seems like so family office is more, I would say, upper echelon in the financial industry, and you seem to have been in the investor side, stocks, and all this. So is it fair to say you've been and now you have your own what they call RIA, if I'm not mistaken, right? Registered Independent. What does it stand for?
registered
RIA?
investment advisor, yeah, RIA for sure. If you're giving financial advice, you need to be registered. There's regulatory bodies and compliance that goes along with that. If you're a family office and you're managing somebody's, independent money, I'm managing my own family office. I don't need to be registered, I'm doing it all for myself. But if we're giving advice to people, then we need to be registered as a RIA.
So
Yes.
the reason I brought that up is to highlight that it seems like you've been in the gambit of every type of aspect, more or less, of your industry, which is fascinating. So before we get into the founding thing, I didn't know that or maybe you had mentioned it, that your grandfather lost the wealth, and it's this entrepreneurial trap that I feel like, and I want to get into it later to kind of tee it up now or foreshadow it or kind of tease the idea, is that there's so much healing in generations and in what we call in the healing industry ancestral healing. So I didn't know that. I always thought your grandfather did well, so that makes a lot of sense. And we're going to get into that later. So let's dive into this because the reason this dovetails is fears. I wanted to start with founders' fears. The mindset tends to be a very difficult one. I've been an entrepreneur even before I did what I do now, as a lawyer, as you know. So it seems like you kind of partially got that from the family, let's say ancestrally, right? Your grandfather, as you even said it, he lost it all, was taken advantage of, things like that that ran in the genetics. What or behaviors, let's say limiting beliefs we inherit, what was it like when you started this? If you can kind of reverse gears and kind of do the before and after of what types of fears did you run into, especially having a family, kids, being a householder, so to speak. What was that like? The fears and concerns when you started to get it off the ground. Once these friends started to flow to you, right? It seems like it was an organic thing, as you said, a confluence of it. So, what was the mindset like early on in terms of the fears and some of the things that are challenging to deal with?
Yeah, for sure. When I was confronted with what am I going to do, right? What's my next path in this industry? Am I going to work to get a job somewhere? Am I going to partner with people that, were former bosses of mine? Am I going to go on my own path? Um, it, the fears initially were that like I need to find a job somewhere else, or I need to partner, and like, am I going to be successful on my own, right? Who's gonna trust in me? I don't have any direct experience. I don't have any clients. I've never given specific advice to anybody. I'm not leaving some firm to go, with a slew of business. And really, I was starting from zero, starting
Mm,
from really zero. And so, thinking through how am I going to build something that's sustainable and that's value additive without having the direct experience in this industry, was very scary. It was definitely scary. Um, from the math side, I was able to quantify how how could I get there? What type of runway financially do I have to give myself to know, like, how much time do I have to know, and what are the milestones and mile marks along the way that can help me figure out like this is viable and I can build it to be sustainable and viable. So I felt like the money was taken care of because I've built savings, I built reserves, and I had enough runway to allow me to
mm,
give myself time, give myself a few years to figure it all out, which I think alleviates a lot of concerns. I
mm.
didn't have to change every up in my entire life to start the business. If I didn't get successful in 3 years, then things would needed to change dramatically. But there was a lot of imposter syndrome,
Mm,
right? Like, I've never done this before.
mm,
Going to trust me, right? Why
mm,
are people going to trust me? I've never had to develop business. I've had to engage people, sell, if you want to call it that.
mm,
So where am I going to get new clients from? Who are the people? How do I even do that? How do I, enroll them in what I'm
mm.
and so a lot of fears around building the business, not necessarily in terms of my own technical competency, but in terms of how do I build a client base that's gonna.
Yeah, the biz dev side, let's say, or the qualitative, because you had the luxury of having the quantitative down, which is what we're going to get into, right? Is this notion of being a planner. So you had that under your belt, which is where a lot of entrepreneurs don't have that luxury. And I like this because this what's next for me is probably what's happening for the world right now, right? Yeah, I would say you and I were early adopters being entrepreneurs for so long because we're seeing it more and more. And I love how you highlighted this path that okay, there's all these options and assessing it. And certainly, yeah, I think the imposter syndrome is I feel for everybody that starts off. And I love how you likened it to a trust thing, is trusting oneself. How are they going to trust me? And it goes to competency as much as it does the mindset. How have you stayed true to your vision? Then I mean it kind of goes part and parcel with the overcoming your fears and the concerns, because I feel like that North Star, the vision, the purpose, the why, um, how have you stayed true to it? Like,
Yeah,
yeah. In other words, let me rephrase that. How have you not done what a lot of people do, which is the selling out that we speak of, this notion of degrading oneself or losing pieces of one's values? Because you even said it earlier, right? I left the family office. It felt selfish. I mean, there's a lot of self-awareness that I've seen in you over the years, and it's gotten even more. The other firm, it wasn't aligned with my values. I would say I was me in law, and I didn't register it until it was too late. I feel like a lot of practitioners, professionals in various industries don't, a lot of leaders. So, how did you stay true to yourself? How did you
yeah,
kind of keep that vision intact, and how did you not get misaligned, so to speak?
yeah, for sure. I think it's difficult, right? You're in an industry where it's money, very much money driven or wealth driven, and there's ways to make fast bucks or quick dollars if that's what it's about. I've continued to just want to go deeper into what my passions are, where I see opportunities to help people using, my gifts, the tools that I've been given. At the same time, we've continued to elevate the type of people, the type of entrepreneurs that we work with. Their
Hmm.
businesses have been getting bigger. The wealth is getting bigger. So at times, do I feel like a sellout? Right? Like there's people, right? There's people
Hmm.
on the journey that I need to get out of debt. Right? There's other
Hmm.
people that need help. I need to help get out of debt.
Hmm.
And I'm not trying to like turn my back on that, but that's not where I believe I can make the biggest impact. So I
Hmm.
believe that where I'm able to make my biggest impact are with these highly successful entrepreneurs. And if I can help them, the magnification effect of their wealth, of their creation, of their legacy, of their philanthropic impact, of their reinvestment back into the community, that I can be bigger and greater because of all of that. And so, yes, there's times where we need to turn down, this isn't the right client for us. There's other people that can help them get what they need. But I want to find a way where I can use my tools, my gifts to have the biggest impact. And that's worth working with this type of clientele.
I love that. I like that because earlier the words that I kind of picked up from why you got into this and the competitiveness, and it wasn't what you would think what you meant by as you elaborated. It seems like you have this inner drive, almost like a knack for optimizing. It's almost like a systems mindset, right? And
Yep.
that's what I hear from you is the North Star for you. And it is a dance, right? It's the growing pains that I wanted to speak to. We could talk to it now, right? As you grow, like any organism, there's levels of the organizational development. You're going through it in another level, I'm sure soon. And so there's this notion of the dance. The inner dance, we're going to get into a lot of this inner work, the mindset, the what does this mean to you? And I love how you already brought it forward. Most people aren't true to themselves or even willing to look at it. They're in dissonance or denial or, kind of suppressing it. That look, money can be a good thing. We have a collective, and I had a very negative understanding of wealth, negative orientation of money. And, if you make money, you sell. So there's a lot of stuff, taboos and head trash and stuff, let's say, in the world or in the collective consciousness. So I love this because it seems to be your Northern Stars. Where can I make the biggest impact? Where can I optimize the most? And that's the dance because, yes, we have to, as they say in the spiritual realm, you can be spiritual. You also have to be a householder. You have to meet your worldly needs. It can't be like, proverbial buffoon sitting on the sidelines and not making any money, which is the theme for the do-gooders listening today is like me, I came to learn in part from you, your inspiration of, whoa, I got to start to, and the stuff we're going to unpack today, you've guided me in bits and parcels of it. So I love that. It seems like you take a very, let's say, again, quantitative approach. It's almost like there's a litmus test for Matt that as an owner, as an entrepreneur, how can I make the biggest impact here? And that seems to be how it threads the needle and keeps you honest, let's say, with yourself. Is that a fair encapsulation of it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's not to say that there's not fear, right? Or it doesn't, there's not that I don't feel like if I say, if there's somebody that needs help, it's still hard for me to say no, even though they're not the perfect fit for me to have that big impact. It's difficult for me, right? Because I want to help, I want people to help. And so saying no sometimes is challenging. But I got to realize that it's not a no. There's a different resource, and I got to say no because there's going to be multiplicative effects if I
Mm.
spend my time somewhere else, and they're able to get, more efficient advice somewhere else themselves. So
Well, let's get into that because you said the key word here, efficiency, right? Which you're really good at, right? You have this knack at your industry. So as an entrepreneur, as we already said, it's going to be natural for you. What has it been like? And now speaking more outward facing for people that don't have your knack and natural planning ability, the practical side of managing a startup or your own firm's finances. As an entrepreneur, as they talk about many books, the E-Myth being one big one, you have to wear many hats, right? Many roles you have to play. So what is that side of it? Because it seems like a natural dovetail because you're already talking about it so much. Planning, practical, the the analysis. Runway, a very big startup word. You see it in the TV
Yep,
show Silicon Valley on HBO. So what can you do? What can you speak to in terms of insights, tips, either that you've gained or you already knew on the practical side of managing the startup's finances, the firm's finances, or an entrepreneurial endeavor's finances?
for sure. I think a lot of people just simply jump into the business without truly laying out the plan and understanding what the financial pieces of that business is. How will it be economically viable?
Hmm.
Things are going to change between the ideation of the business to year three, month one and month 12 and month six. But we need to have some semblance of what is this even viable? Can it work? And what does that mean? And how long will it take to get there?
Hmm.
And so people, even if they're not good at math, they need to be able to find a way to sketch out what this looks like. How much does it cost to acquire a customer? How much money do I earn from a client? How many clients do I need to get to break even? And I feel like if you don't know this, then your business then is not being built in congruence with your life. Because if I'm making a decision to
Hmm.
say, I'm going to start a business as opposed to go work somewhere else, that business needs to produce something for me as the owner. It needs to produce a certain amount of money for me to pay my rent, pay my bills. If I like to travel, travel. If I have children, provide for them. If we don't know the economics of our business, then our business doesn't have the right goals. The goals of the business need to support the personal. And that means I need to earn X. I need to have this many clients. I need to sell this many widgets. And so initially, we need to be able to sketch that out. How much do I need to invest? How long is it going to take me? How many sales calls do I need to go on to win, one piece of business?
Hmm.
That needs to be structured. That needs to be calculated. It doesn't mean it's going to be precise, but it gives you the luxury of then figuring out, okay, now what do I need to do to make this happen at year three, year six, month six, month 12?
This is what I love about you because you have a very integrative approach. You have an interdisciplinary approach that you've picked up, I sense, along the way. And I like this because I wrote down know thy business, right? We're so focused on knowing thyself. And so it's economic viability and
Yeah.
sketching the numbers, being in depth about it, going to that level. Now, from your experience, why don't people, because we're going to see a similar analysis in a different way when we get to the personal planning, and it extends into that conversation in a few minutes or so. Why, from your experience, don't people do that? I mean, I can speak for myself. I would say I inherited from my family, kind of similar to your grandfather in a different way. Funny enough, my grandfather didn't lose it all. There was similar-ish kind of that scarcity or betrayal type of a mindset. So I'd say I inherited it, and I would say I maybe spiritualized it negatively. Oh, I don't want to look at the money because if I do, I'll be that kind of a person. And it was almost like a counterintuitive. I had my wires crossed, I would say. From your professional experience, what have you run into and how can you speak to that? Why do you sense that humans don't do that? Or what don't we like about the math of finance or the math of our wealth? Because
Yeah.
we don't have this objection to algebra. I don't sense people revolt as much to algebra as they do to financial analysis.
Right. Yeah. It's confronting, right? It is
Oh,
confronting to have to look at that. And I think in some ways, because it's confronting, it also creates potentially de denial. Like they have to, there's some acceptance versus ownership. When you see the numbers, you have to own that. Like, this is my
mm,
business. I have to own that. So if I don't really build out the financial model to say it's economical and viable, then I don't have to own that outcome. I don't have to own that
mm,
outcome, right? Because it's
mm.
almost like I'm denying that I'm the owner of this without,
Interesting.
'cause otherwise it's like, does this work? Does the math work? And if I don't look at the math saying it works or not, I can just go, "Nah,
it's kind of like what you're saying is the theme of disowning one's power, because I do see that a lot in my work, right? Working with leaders. So is that more or less the axiom from what the
Yeah,
ways it shows up is because they want to
right.
stay in denial or dissonance because the minute they do, then they have to kind of take responsibility?
Correct. And I think, yeah, I might start a business. It sounds easier. I don't have any other options, but they have not fully owned that
Hmm.
for themselves. And so,
Hmm. And what
right.
earlier too, you said something really potent. I mean, you've been dropping a lot of dope nuggets already. The business grows in congruence with your life because that really stuck out for me already because you're talking some very powerful languaging that you don't normally hear from a financial planner or advisor is alignment. We're going to get into intuition or getting more into the insights earlier. Part of your branding, it carries clarity, insight, intuitive type of languaging. And here you're talking about congruence. Can you elaborate on that statement? It's landed so much for me that your business, when you do this in economic, I call it viability, building the model words you're using, because you want your business to grow in congruence with your life. What does that mean? Unpack that a little bit more for us.
Sure. I mean, I think if we're going to have a business, it's something that we're going to spend time in. How does that align with our interests, our competitive advantage, our knowledge, our passion in some way, shape, or form? I don't believe you have to be like super passionate about it, but about like, oh, I sell straws. However, you might want to be passionate about the business aspects of selling straws. And so I think as business evolves, it's a component of one's life. So, how do I ensure that whatever I am building fits into the life that I want to live? And that might mean for me, I want to be able to coach Little League. I want to be at my daughter's softball games. I
Mm,
want to be able to take 2 months off in the summer and travel with my children or my family. Or I want to actually exit in 10 years and be completely financially free and spend my time doing philanthropic endeavors or charitable endeavors or mission work. If the business is not built around that personal vision, then what's the point of it?
Hmm. So it sounds like you're talking energetic match is almost the lingo I would use in this spiritual sciences lingo. Because what I'm seeing from you is what an inventor leader is going to talk about this season, Gail, which is that anything we create, entrepreneur, whether it be a product or service firm, it's an energetic extension of us. So what I'm hearing from you when you say your business grows in congruence with you, if you don't take the ownership, you don't do the analysis, you don't put yourself more energetically invested into looking at the numbers and the finances and matching that up. It's almost like you're going to have you over here, your business over here. They're not going to be almost, there's no interplay and there's
Exactly.
no energetic match to use my lingo. And then as it grows, it's going to be like, and I love what you're highlighting, very practical as you always speak, you're going to grow apart. So it's almost like what a relationship would do, like if you don't work. So it's like you're almost describing like that with your business, that eventually you drift apart and you have a love-hate relationship with your business. So
Sure.
would you say, I mean, is it fair to kind of extend this one step further and to say that the financial analysis keeps one energetically in check?
Hmm.
I know I'm stretching you by saying that. Hey, we riff and jive here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
How does that
Yeah.
land for your genius brain?
That's interesting. I absolutely believe these there's not perfect balance amongst all this, right? Like there
Right.
might be a season of because of what I'm trying to build, I'm putting an unbelievable amount of energy and effort into my business, and there's might be a cost of that. The cost might be relationships and friendships and periods of time, but if we go in eyes wide open, if it's something that we're creating, if it's part of our plan and we know, then that's okay. They need to be in harmony. Now, as the
Hmm.
financial knowledge, the quantification of the numbers, energetic, we say that again?
Yeah, I'm wondering if almost like we see this a lot, right? In conflict resolution and business
Yeah.
ownership litigation. It's like one, especially with co-founders and startups and partners. It's like one person like kind of neglects the numbers and or like most of us, right? What we're talking about. We don't want to confront it. So then what you start to see more and more is all these organizational problems, all these startup problems, all these founding and entrepreneurial endeavors. Again, whether it's a product, widget, straws, or service. And it seems like there's a lot of this mismatch There's
Yep.
no harmony, no congruence. And it seems like a big linchpin is looking at the numbers because we're going to unpack. I mean, this is what's kind of come through into my head because we're going to unpack more on the personal side as a leader. Wealth means more than the numbers. So it seems like by looking at the finances, you can kind of get a gauge on the health of the organization, which
Oh,
is the
absolutely.
energetics.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Your finances, shows a lot about where you're at from an energetic perspective, from a competency. It's a scoreboard ultimately, and it tells you whether you're on or off track. Am I achieving my goals? Am I not achieving my goals? Am I hitting my budget? Am I not hitting my budget? And that's why at times people don't look at it. They don't want to be let down. They want to
Mm.
go outside of themselves in some ways, as opposed to look within and say, why are we here?
So the KPIs is what you're talking about, right? Key performance indicators. This thing, it's so big, not
Oh,
only
yeah.
with CFOs, the COO. I mean, it's a very big thing, which goes to this economic viability that you're providing in terms of practical insights and tips on where to go as an entrepreneur, whether you're seasoned, starting out. I mean, it's a development of this uh, maturation, this financial savvy, this insight that you've gained is obviously as the expert. It seems like, yeah, I mean, I've heard other people say this. It's ringing a bell that the KPIs are the health of an organization. I'm almost taking this one step further and going like, because I've come to learn, as I was telling you, and I want to unpack it today, that my mind has been blown the last couple of years looking at wealth and understanding currency, even money. Well, currency. Somebody introduced me to that concept 2 years ago, and I think I shared it with you on our call to kind of do the show that there's an energetic component to money that's even in the words, even in the syntax of currency. Wealth is really the amount you can hold, how much wealth, assets. So there's a lot that I would say now that what we're parceling through the finances are the health of an organization, the KPIs being one stat. That it actually goes a little bit deeper because you're highlighting so much that my brain is picking up. I'm going, wow, this can show you almost if you're looking the right way where your blind spots are in terms of inner work, right? Is that a fair? Because that's what it seems like your work entails is kind of guiding them through the inner psychology and orientation to money. Is that a fair
Yeah. No.
statement?
Yeah. I think it shows up in certain ways. Maybe it's not as clinical.
Yeah, yeah. I'm making it very prognosis clinical. I like how you said that. Yeah.
However, we want people to address those beliefs or face the things that they haven't been willing to face or understand why they're making certain decisions, what the motivations are or lack thereof. And so being able to peel the onion back is absolutely critical in the work that we do. And right, it shows up in business, it shows up on your personal balance sheet. If uh, yeah, if we're not
Well, let's go this.
thinking,
What? Let's take this naturally one step further. So we've talked about the organization. Let's go into the individual
yeah,
leader, this finding your financial values, let's say, for instance. Um, because it seems like a natural progression. You're already kind of speaking to it. When you work with somebody, when they first come to you, because we started to tackle it almost like in reverse, put the proverbial cart before the horse, right? Because every leader will create an organization. So we started to tackle the organizational side of things because it flowed organically. Let's go to the leader. When they come to you, because it seems like you're already starting to get into that, the beliefs and the philosophy and such, how do you start to work with them? In other words, I'm new, I'm listening to you listening to the show, and I'm like, I don't know where to even begin with the stuff you and Haas are talking about. Where do you begin with them in terms of starting this shift inwards and looking at the relationship to wealth, money, et cetera, et cetera? Where do you begin and how do you flow from there?
yeah, for sure. No, one of the initial aspects of the work is having people kind of get to the heart of what matters. And
Mm, mm,
when they think about their time and when they think about their money. And there's been three questions that we've been trained on. Somebody named George Kinder. He's the founder of like what's called life planning.
mm.
And there's a financial life planning um, how do I say this?
Like a model or framework
Yeah,
almost?
like a framework for sure.
Okay.
And there's three questions that he asks. And we like to have clients sit with this independently, but then we like to unpack it with them. In some cases, the answers are short. In some cases, the answers are um, longer. And one of the questions is like freedom of time. And it's like, imagine you have all the money that you ever need, both now and in the future. You don't need to worry about saving, anything like that. Like, what would you do with your time if you were completely financially free? How would you spend your days? How would you spend your time, your energy? So, really having people think, at that dimension.
Hmm.
And then, you know, what if time was running out? And like,
Hmm.
question number two is, now imagine that you go to your doctor and your doctor tells you that you have 5 to 10 years left to live. You're not going to feel sick, but you don't know exactly when your last day is going to come. How would you live differently knowing that your time is limited?
Hmm.
Hearing people, share what they would do. I would do this with my kids. I would go travel here. I would stop working. I would do more, mission work. The answers are so vast and so broad and so personal.
Hmm.
Uh, and then the third question is, your doctor tells you that today's the last day. You have no time left.
Hmm.
What did you miss? What was not done? What didn't you get to do?
Hmm.
So answering these questions
Wow.
individually, right? Like, get them to take the time to think through that. If it's a couple, that we're working with, they do that them independently and being able to share those things
Wow.
collectively
Wow.
together. And it's not about a bucket list, right? It's not, it's just,
Well, you're getting to the heart of what matters. It's going deep into what, in interest-based negotiation. It's getting to the interest, it's getting to the true essence of, what I would say in my parlance is your soul's calling, your soul. It's your truest, like if nothing else, you said it earlier, peeling back the onion, right? You start to cut through the fluff because there's so much conditioning, so many layers to what we think, right? We kind of kosher stamp and sure, this is mine. And this is beautiful because yeah. So break it down one more time. So it's freedom of time, which is what's the first analysis again? I wrote
yeah. I mean, imagine you have all the money you ever need now and in the
all the
future. You
money.
never need to worry about money again, and you
So
can do whatever
you
you
have it,
want.
you're complete. What would you do?
What would change? Yeah, how would you spend your time? And
If
then
you're, and then second is if you're running out of time,
when
how
they,
would you live the last few days? And then the third kind of flips it on its head. If it's the last day, what would you have missed?
yeah,
Oh
what
yeah,
did
that would no matter who you are, I could see definitively that boom, 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 you're gonna get to the kernels of your truest essence of like, this is the most important aspects of who I am and what I want to do and experience.
right alignment of our money, our time, our freedom? Like, how do those all get together? And then it's, why aren't we doing some of these things? What are the roadblocks that are in our way that are having us not do this? What's the excuses that we're making for not going on taking the family on the trip that you so want to do? Is it financial? Is it your job doesn't let you do that? Your business? You're worried that your team won't hold up the business when you're gone? What are all the things that are holding you back, or what needs to be positioned to allow you to do that? So you're understanding values, you're understanding their goals, some of their fears, some of their aspirations, and why they might not be doing those things today.
Hmm. Then what do we do with all that?
Yeah. I mean, from there, it's how do we pull things apart to like identify like where is there that misalignment, and what would have to change in order to get there? And in some cases, there's the quantification, right?
Mm.
There's the math side of things that people are completely oblivious to if they've never gone through a process. They might not know that, they want to take 3 months off, or they want to travel, or they want to rent a boat in the Mediterranean for the summer. What does that cost? Right? They might have never been through, my ideal life costs X, Y, and Z. We can go through a process to quantify what that ideal picture is for them.
Mm.
And then what are the changes that might need to happen in order for them to weave those things in? And it might not be everything that happens today, it might be a process and things that happen over time,
Hmm.
or they could do all those things. How do they, maybe they financially can do all those things. Now it's about other decisions. It's about other business decisions. It's about other relationship decisions. It's about where are we going to put our kids in school? And money might not have anything to do with it, but we thought it was a money problem, but it's
So
not.
this is like an extension. I hear you say it as it's almost like an extension of the analysis we did with the organizational side. It's
Yeah,
almost once you parcel through with this framework to what it is you want to achieve, then it's reverse engineering that almost to use that parlance to, well, what would the cost? So back to like almost like an economic viability type of an analysis. We got to
for
kind
sure.
of then go, okay, well, and I love the various analogies you drew, right? If it's a boat, if it's a trip, how much will the trip cost? If it's your dream vacay, because once we've gotten to the heart of the matter, then we got to kind of go, well, what will the and now the math, as you put it, right? Which is similar, it seems like, for the entrepreneur, the organizational side.
Right. And but then it ties back to the organization, right? If we still own a
Mm.
business, if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to include these things in my life that cost money, take time,
It
where does
dovetails.
my business need to be? Do I
Mm.
need to double my business in order to be there? Am I willing to take the put in the energy in order to get it to be there to have to do this? What has to change in my business so that that business can fulfill on the personal side, right? Like they,
And that's what you meant by the congruence. Now we're
yeah,
getting more flushing it
absolutely.
out even more than we already did, because then you translate this and you input this personal analysis into that as well, so that
Yes.
it's almost like, you got to manage both variables, like you said, the harmony word, the harmony between this personal goal and how will my business carry me there too.
For sure. And then we get to assess some of the trade-offs that we're going to need to make. Do I really want that? Yeah, I say I want to go for 3 months and I want to yacht in the Mediterranean. But is that really what I want? And in order for me to get there, do I really want to do that? Do I want to have to hire 17 more people in my business? That the type of business that I really want to have? So like we get to understand and make decisions that are some ways financial, other ways, is this how I spend our time? Do I really want the complexity of owning a boat in the Mediterranean and dealing with upkeep and maintenance and insurance? Like that might not be the life that we really want. So we get to really uncover all those
I
things.
would say some people venture as far as to do the cost. Trade-offs is a very interesting variable that you introduce because
Yeah,
it is a form of cost. It is a non-monetary cost that is oftentimes not looked at. And so much of what you're flushing out is bringing to me, and I'm certain to the listeners already, so much consciousness and deeper awareness to what it means to have money and wealth and grow a business, the finance side. What in terms of this analysis that we're into now, this transcending, looking beyond money as simply a currency or a number, um, what other components, other than what we're talking about, what else is factored in? So as you kind of start to unpack this, so we do the heart of the matter, we start to go into how do you then make that viable, trade-offs and cost seems to be then a third part of the analysis, again, to kind of paint by numbers it. I know it's not always that linear, so to speak. It seems like trade-offs, cost. Okay, are you sure? So is that like a double checking mechanism then that you're doing as an advisor?
we also need to understand where people are today. We need to understand where are we personally today. Many people, one of the building blocks, same thing, starting the business. Well, what's my break even or how much,
Mm.
like people don't even know their personal break even. They don't even necessarily know how much they need to, how much it costs them to live their life that they might enjoy already today. That's a confronting thing to think about, right? And so where are we today? What's the gap between where we want to be in the future? If that means adding other things or having different luxuries, or the elimination of things that are waste and excessive and not
Mm.
providing value in one's life.
This is
So
this is interesting, yeah, because you would think a financial advisor would start with the number. I know the traditionalists do, and that's what's remarkable how you're approaching it, and others like you, the thought leaders, let's say, the pioneers in this work. So it seems like then you get to the kernels of financial values,
yeah,
financial goals, financial metrics. So you're taking this qualitative, weaving it with the quantitative, and then getting into really how is this important to you? Does it matter? How much does it matter?
Yep.
What kind of metrics we talked about? I mean, so, okay, we didn't get too much into it. What kind of metrics do you look at in terms of
Yeah,
when you're looking at as an individual? How do we then start to put this into more number languaging, which some of us may struggle with?
for sure. I think one of the numbers that isn't really spoken about much, but we like to really use is the savings rate, right? If we're on this wealth building journey and we want to be financially free, there's variables that we can't control. Can't control what the stock market's going to produce in terms of rates of return this year. I might have a really good idea what it might do over the next 30 years, but what's going to happen this year or the next year? We don't control that. I don't control what the government tax rate is going to be or what GDP is.
Hmm.
So we want to understand our controllables. And one of the most controllable factors is the savings rate. And that's basically what is the percentage of what is the amount that we save as a
Hmm.
percentage of the amount that we make. And the higher percentage that we save as a percentage of our income tells us specifically how quickly we can become financially free. If I make $100,000 and I save 50, right? I have a 50% savings rate. That means my lifestyle is costing me 50. If I were to save 50% for 10 years, I can be financially free in like 12 years based on that savings rate. So we can understand that savings rate can be the determining factor of when we'll be financially free. So that's a number that most people have no idea
Hmm.
about. And so if my income is X, how much am I saving of that income? That's a huge determining factor because it's a controllable number. Uh, Even though some people might argue that I have to spend money on this or I have to spend money on that or this country club membership, I have to do it, you know.
Well, we're throwing this word around financial freedom or this phrase around. What does that mean in your industry? Or what from you? Well, let me say it twofold. What does it mean in the industry, and what does it mean to you? Because I wouldn't say you're unique to the industry, right? Because you're bringing so much more into integrative or more of a holistic approach, which again is where we're hoping the entire industry heads. Um, what is it that you look at in terms of this financial freedom? What does that look like for you, and what does it look like in the industry? What does that even
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, I think there's different levels of financial freedom,
Ooh, I
different
like
ways.
that. Let's talk about that then. Keep going. Yeah, yeah, levels. I like that.
You know, and some of them might be tied to the old line of thinking or the old model where they're not spending their time doing what they love, or they're not spending their time in business or careers that are rewarding or fulfilling. At the same time, there's things happen in life, and we need to be prepared to what if we can't work? What if we can't produce an active income from business or from our careers? That means that we need to live off of our assets. And
Hmm.
so we need to get to the point where our assets and the income that our own assets produce without us having to expend energy producing them, showing up for work every day can allow us to maintain our life,
Hmm.
maintain our life. So if I never need to work another day to earn money, like my portfolio can produce sufficient income for me to live off of the rest of my life. Now, that might be some baseline amount. Some people might be financially free, or we could reduce our expenses and hey, we can get by. We can get by, cutting things back and like
Is
that
that
might
what
be,
they mean by your money is working for you then? When you're financially free, it sounds like that's the formula. Your money is working for you.
yeah, your money is producing the income for you. You're not running a company to do so in order to pay the bills anymore. Your own wealth is passively producing
Well, I could
that.
see, I mean, that's what so many entrepreneurs get stuck in, right? 'Cause so much of what we're already unpacking, the lack of awareness to confront, as you said earlier, to look at personal organizational finances. And they are, what is it, the saying that they're in the business, not working on the business, right? Or the business isn't really working for them. I forget how it goes in the MBA languaging. Um,
We're
yeah,
going to do that on the business.
there you go. So it sounds like then, so it's levels. And if you start to pay attention to this, it's the income from the assets is starting to generate. Is there anything else you would say is considered for looking at financial freedom or anything else that would be insightful in terms of
Yeah.
starting to look at that wording?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think money is about how you're spending spending your time, right? You having enough money that allows you to spend your time however you
Well, let me
want.
interject because you said this. I forgot this because you said this. 'Cause you said the old model that is. It sounds like you didn't say it exactly this way. The old model of making money even if you don't enjoy it. Is that more or less what you meant by the old model? Sorry to interject your flow.
Yeah, and then it's like I'm going to retire at 65, and then it's set from
Is that a
65.
generational thing? You feel like is that like kind of like our parents, or not to be generationalist, like the boomers as they jokingly call them, or whatever? Is that like do you feel like it's the old way of being that
I
you're gonna
believe so.
work until you die, and it's not I enjoy my job per se?
It still shows up in younger generations. It still
Hmm,
shows up that mindset, and that might be because of the older generation and what it's being passed down, or how people
interesting.
spoken or talk about money. I
What would
think,
you say is the new model? I say you and I sense you and I embody it. How would you speak to then the new model then? Is it almost
yeah,
like,
I,
yeah,
I think it's about incorporating this all into your life now, right?
everything
Incorporate.
we're speaking to essentially is what is the new model in a way.
Right. One, we need to prepare ourselves for the event that what if we can't run our business? We need to be mindful of those things. So we need to be setting up our finances in a way that allows us to prepare for the day that if we can't work or if I can't run my business, that we're going to be set for life. At the same time, it's not all about just sacrificing for some uncertain future. It's enjoying how we're spending our time now and building our business and working on or in our business is important. It can be fulfilling. It can be impactful, and no one should have to leave or retire from that. Like, why would I ever want to retire from that?
Hmm.
But things
It
change.
goes back to that congruence, right? If it's an energetic match, as I said it, then it seems like then you would have the drive to keep going. I mean, when I first started working with you and we had a couple of really insightful conversations and you guided me, I would say the key of what we're the kernel or the axiom of what we're really doing in this conversation is putting on paper, right? Is never even consider I'd never considered my goals, my let's say my number goals, my wealth goals, financial goals, let alone the questions we've already started to go in depth into what really mattered to me, my proverbial ideal life. I would say this is probably one of the biggest problems in the world right now. I mean, we have so much, even more since we agreed to do it. I mean, the markets are, as we're recording in late middle of April 2025. I mean, the markets are doing this. I would say psychologically, that's where the world is at. So few people have holistically planned what you do for a living, that it's like not considering this stuff is dire because of the chaos. Like you said earlier, controllables. There's so much uncontrollable, whether it be market conditions, as you said, or I'm broadening it to life chaos. And it seems like this is key stuff. And if I hadn't worked with you, if I hadn't had the interface with you, so to speak, I haven't worked with you. Once I amass more wealth, hopefully I'll make that threshold. I'm teasing you. It seems, I mean, I don't know. How do you, I'm kind of processing out loud here. Well, how do you feel about that? Is it fair to kind of hypothesize that a big problem in the world in terms of fear and the world kind of what are we going to do now, especially now more than ever, is because people haven't planned and they haven't done the very things we're suggesting and what your insights are going towards?
Absolutely. And I think people often say like, it costs a lot of money to do this or that or time. Like
They've
like
never
Jim.
done the analysis. They've never parceled through what we're parceling through right now, is what you're almost saying. It's a cop out. It's not
Yeah, it
confronting. It's
is.
not owning again.
Right. Well, I think Jim Rohn, what did he say? It's not the money that counts, it's the plan that counts, right? It's not the money, it's the plan. All right. It's like
There's a lot
money.
of vulnerability in this because you got to confront already, or fears, beliefs. We're going to get even more into this. Where do the do-gooders fit in? So as we're kind of parceling through this worst case, dire, what from the very few or however many you've run into that are like the me types that are, either spiritual or this or do-gooders or, all these parlances now, conscious business, conscious entrepreneur, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the lingo, I call it simply for today, colloquializing it as a do-gooder. What do you sense in terms of them listening in the audience, in terms of what we're already talking about? What do you see as the roadblocks there?
Yeah. I believe that there in some cases, I think there needs to be the full belief of what you are doing and the belief that it's very value additive. Like you're going to help a lot of people. So there's a scarcity and abundance mindset in some respects that if I charge X, Y, and Z, then people are gonna look differently think differently about me, or I'm some capitalist, as opposed to it doesn't end there. Like you producing more income for yourself is not a selfish thing. Like that can go to so much to it. Money is multiplicative. Like it can be it doesn't stop with you making it. It can be exchanged to somebody else. It can be invested in another impactful, business endeavor that you want to create. It can be contributed to philanthropic or charitable efforts. And so I believe that like a lot of it still comes down to our own belief that like we're doing something, wrong if we're
Mm.
charging X, Y, and Z, or in some way, shape, or form. And
I would agree with
there's,
you. I would agree with you. Unpack this from your experience. These two words, value. What does value mean to you and or in the industry that you're in, and worth?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I
Because
think,
that's what you're speaking to. I would say the do-gooders, from hearing it from you, is if I'm hearing you correctly, it seems
yeah,
like they don't understand how to value themselves. You spoke to
right,
a word that was in my notes for our outline today, the scarcity consciousness. Um, Beautifully put. So there's a lot to that, and we're dancing around now these words that mean something in your industry, value and worth, and also you probably have another level of analysis on it outside of just the general industry norm. So how can you unpack value and worth since we're dancing around them as terms?
yeah, no, I mean, I think it even shows up for myself as an entrepreneur, business owner, like how, what are our fees congruent with the value that we deliver? And at time, there's probably in most cases, we're under probably our fees are below where the market is, I would say. And the same thoughts or fears or concerns show up for me as they probably do for other do-gooders in the world. And
How do you do that? That value analysis of value, am I being paid enough? Value seems to me to put it into a formula equals, am I being paid enough? Am I being paid, which we're going to get to the next term, my worth?
yep,
How did you do that analysis being in an industry where you're like, okay, I got to set rates and again, I know there's some of it you've already mentioned. You got to kind of look at the market, you hint, hint. How would
yeah,
you go about that if you're completely new or you're starting up from scratch and you have no financial savvy? How do
sure,
you dictate that? How do you
yeah.
determine that?
Well, in some respects, it's gonna if we're starting over from scratch and we're in some industry, there's gonna be we can do some research to understand what is this practitioner charge, like what's the range of values for these
Step
practitioners.
one, market research. Check.
Yeah.
Easy to do. What's next? What do we do with that data then?
Yeah, what do we do with that data? Then I would be looking at, well, what do I want to be able to achieve from my business, right? Like if I want to be able to earn $20,000 a month and the average market for my services, whatever that might be, is $200 an hour, well, here's how many clients or widgets that
Which
I
is,
need to sell in order to get there. And that might be
so
a
this plugs into the greater analysis we've been doing all along. This variable then plugs into this holistic analysis that you do as a financial life planner that it's like, oh, so I need, like you said, I didn't mean to interject, 20,000 if that's your goal, then how are you going to hit that? And
right.
then reverse engineering it further, then you're going to have to hit that many clients or make that many widgets. So how do you then determine if it's realistic or not? Because so many people do, as the Americans say, pie in the sky, right? They have unpractical idealism without any pragmatics, which was
Yeah,
probably me before I met you. And so, and you
right.
were really pragmatic, and I added the woo woo even more than you already had. So I would say, how do you balance that? How do you get to, oh shit, Haas, you're not being realistic. You can't freaking farm 100 clients in a month to hit your goal. How do you
Right.
manage that when we're doing this analysis?
Right. I mean, I think that's part of setting the right goals, understanding what is realistic. Yeah, could I sell 200,000 of these things or whatever it might be. Um, I think oftentimes though we sell ourselves short. We don't if somebody is doing it, why can't we? We're not
Mm,
asking ourselves the right questions. Why couldn't I? Or do I need to be doing things differently? Do I need to be solving problems for in a different way? Does that mean my business should be generic, or should I be working with a niche where I can truly become the expert in a area, which then commands a potential premium? And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
a premium provider because I know so well this subset of problems that I'm not the generalist, I'm not the generic, I'm not the average. I'm creating a unique offering that allows us to, yeah, I would say, deliver more value than being the general provider. And so it could simply be becoming a specialist, becoming an expert in a specific industry where there's more pricing power.
So
For
I
you
like
to,
that. You don't necessarily become a naysayer as an advisor. You kind of get creative with them, it sounds like, and go, okay, how can you sub niche to charge a premium? From your experience, I'm going to spitball here. I'm curious because my eldest sibling did this when his business started to thrive, the velvet rope effect, right?
sure. Yep.
And we had this in law. It was like if you don't want to take on the client, charge way more than you ever would ask for, in part because you don't really want to take the case. And then if they pay you, it's golden. I mean, there's
Right.
various ways I've heard it in the industry. I'm curious, what's your perspective? What's your opinion on overcharging, not because you want to be greedy, because of this, the word I even wrote down and then you said it, premium. What is your perspective and opinion on charging a premium because you know you're worth it? That's blatantly higher than the market.
Sure.
And
I
let's
think,
say you're not okay. There's specialists, as you pointed out, and
sure.
unspecial. Let's take that variable away and say, as a generalist, how do you feel about that without being a premium provider, so to speak?
For sure. I guess
Does
I
it
would
work? Because for my brother, it seems to have worked.
I guess I would take out the word like overcharging. I don't want to be overcharging.
Well, literally, he did this. I mean, he did this. He literally shut down his practice, wasn't blowing up, and then literally said thousands of dollars to get on my wait list. I mean,
Yep.
when I heard it, I was like, this is counterintuitive, right? That's why I'm
Yeah.
bringing it up because I'm curious what
Oh,
you think about
yeah,
this.
it
And
creates
I
scarcity.
don't. He's not unique. I think other people have done it. It's a very ballsy move. It's a big leap.
Yep.
And so I'm wondering, like, how do you feel about that? What's your perspective on that? Being in the industry, yeah, that
Yeah,
being
no,
in the industry of money, basically, yeah.
yeah, for sure. I think I don't believe in like overcharging. I want people to get value. And if that means my fees are higher than the average because they're having a premium experience or a premium service, or they're getting more value than they would with the market, that's great. There's
Well, we're
nothing
getting
wrong
to worth. So it sounds like you're saying, Haas, if it's worth it, then I would charge a premium.
for
Um,
sure. So like,
yeah.
going back to like our industry, if we just want to use like, this is super generic. There's the
Yeah.
old saying, like, if someone has, I'm going to throw out big numbers. If someone has $5 million in their stock portfolio at some advisory firm, the average fee is 1%, right? 1%, $50,000 a year to manage $5 million in a portfolio.
Hmm.
Maybe it's 80 basis points, and we're talking 40,000.
Hmm.
That might purely be for the going rate of, we're going to put you in a portfolio. We'll check in with you every 3 months. We'll
Like
send
the minimal work a firm would do.
minimal work a firm would do. It's super automated. They're hardly doing anything. Now, that's the market, right? However, if we're thinking from like a family office component, there's cash flow management, liquidity, there's tax planning, tax projections, there's the insurance portfolio, there's all the goals. Are we on track? There's so many decisions that happen in one's financial life. So I could pay someone could also manage the portfolio as part of that, or they could help the client buy a duplex or a triplex because that's part of their plan. That market rate of $40,000. Well, what if I get that and then all these other things? Should I still be paying $40,000? Should I be paying 60? Should I be paying 80? Is the 40 that I'm paying to this person way too high and not value additive? Like, there's a whole host of things that one could think about
It seems
with
like
that.
it's a mindset thing. Then you do the analysis, it sounds like, and the integrity of making sure they get their proverbial worth for the value they're paying. So, what does worth mean then to you? So, value is almost like, am I being paid enough? It's almost like the formulation of how much should I get per unit kind of an analysis. What's the worth part of this then?
To me, the worth part is just internal, right? Like believing in your one's own worth, right? Believing that they're going to be able to deliver that value. And I'm worthy of being compensated at a premium to the market. And I can own that because of what my clients are going to experience, the results that they're going to get by working with us. I know that I can deliver on that. I believe that worth is internal, not external.
Well, let's get into that internal landscape since we've done so much on the external, the metrics and so how do you get there, which not that we haven't touched the internal. We've done a lot as it interplays. Let's go purely within in this notion because we've already talked about scarcity. Well, we haven't talked about it. We've mentioned scarcity mindset. It seems like, and I want to couch it this way, which will be a good dovetail after we cover this to wealth in terms of generational wealth and family wealth. And once you make it, which we've talked so much about, and you grow it, which we're also starting to get into and have been talking about, how do you keep it, which we'll get to a little bit later. It seems like, and you already said at the beginning, family experiences shape so much. I mean, we get shaped by a lot of things. Family seems to be a big one. And
Yep.
when we talk about later generational wealth, it's on the other side. It's equally another aspect of it. Two questions. Let's flip it on its head and say it this way. What was it like coming from this betrayal, this grandfather lost it all this? How did that shape you? And how did you bring healing? How did you change that inner dialogue, your worthiness to bring healing to it? So, in other words, how did it shape you to grow up in that environment? If you can be a little raw about it, like early on before you started to do the inner work, and then how did you then take the family in a different direction so you didn't proverbially repeat those mindsets, that consciousness that was in the family tree, as they say? Does
Yeah,
that
for
make
sure.
sense? Did I say cogently? Sorry, a little amorphous, I know. So, like, how, you inherited this, right? Your grandfather had this happen.
Yep.
How did that impact you early on? And then how did you heal from it? How did you then go another way so that it doesn't repeat again in your family?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like having that experience or seeing it as a teenager or a kid or learning it as a young adult. Yeah, there's obviously trust issues that can show up from that. Like, who does somebody trust if the person that they entrusted their money with could do such a thing, could steal or
Mm.
jeopardize somebody's financial future, impact generations. There's the stress that it causes, to other family members having to provide support. It kind of impacted, my parents, right? Like if my grandparents ran out of money and they needed financial support, that means that money is coming from a different bucket or coming from my own family, which means that then changes their own,
How did
ability to,
that stress shape you then? So the
yeah,
trust issues is glaring. So
yeah,
bingo. The stress, what did the stress cause then? How did that imprint?
yeah. It's a good question. Let me think how the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
stress.
Now, thank you for being raw about this. And this is stuff I don't know about you. So it's coming out very inspired is the point of the show more and more.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Um, for me is like, are we going to be okay? Is my family going to be okay? Like, are they going to be able to live their life,
Is that
with
a
all,
is that a scarcity mindset?
yeah,
You say that's a scarcity mindset? Because I don't know exactly how it shows up. I don't even know how people would define that. You know what I mean? It's because I mean it's almost that's what it sounds like. The trust issues, easy to
yep,
grasp. Yep.
sure,
Somebody in the family got screwed, so the next generation's like, oh, can I trust people? Easy to even common sense grasp that. The
yep,
stressors is not what we usually look at. These seems to be more energetic, right? They impact us in let's say subtle hidden way, right?
right,
My arena of work. So the
sure,
stress is, are you said these words, are we going to be okay? It's almost like, are we going to have enough? Which
yeah,
correct, that seems like scarcityness, like,
yeah, it is for sure, yeah, absolutely. And I think like that's the same question that shows up when people are freaking out about the stock market and the trade tariffs. Like, the market's down, they're freaked out about the market. The real question they're asking is like, are they going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? Am I am I going to be able to live my life? Am I going to be able to meet my goals or not run out of money? Like those are the questions that people are really asking when they're freaking out about the market. And yeah, it is in some ways about scarcity.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, it
Clarity.
seems like this work that we're in knee deep in on this episode already addresses these inner blocks, shall we say, or these inner imprints that we get from family.
Yep.
I would say a lot of wealth. Was this a fair statement? A lot of wealth conditioning, limiting beliefs, consciousness is from family.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, it's
Obviously,
a
society has a big part. I mean, right? I mean,
much of it is family. So much of it is family, how they grew up, what their parents said, whether their parents paid for college, didn't pay for college for their kids. Did they ever go on a vacation? Did they like
well, let's slow down because I did know that about you personally, right? Because so would you say that how did that, let's take this even further as you're speaking to it and how it impacts, speak to how it impacted you personally, if you can take this a step further. How did the trust issues, the stressors, the scarcity mindset, how did you bring healing to it? What was it like to have it and then overcome it, to then
yeah,
deviate or bring healing to the family tree, as we call it in my parlance?
yeah, for sure.
Because I know for a fact you were too hardworking and it was like almost hard to get you to relax, if I remember
Right.
correctly from a few years ago. Would you say that's one imprint you got from your grandfather and the family wealth
Yeah, you gotta be
imprints?
self-reliant, right? You got to be self-reliant. I can't rely on other people to create anything for me. Like I got to do this all myself. Yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah, that was
And how did
that.
you bring healing to the trust issues and the scarcity issues, like, and then the self-reliance to be able to relax? And because I would say that then drives a leader to then hold the reins too tight, which in the growing curve you grow, you can't grow an organization that way, as you've come to learn, and that's the maturation of a business owner. So like, how did you overcome this stuff? What inner work did you do to deal with these money imprints from family and from conditioning and from upbringing,
Yeah, for sure.
if you're okay talking about it? And if not, it's okay too.
Yeah, no, over time I've done different aspects of like belief management, like what are my beliefs on a specific subject? Um, writing, you know, writing down what the old belief was, over and over and over again, and tearing that piece of paper up, and then imagining myself like if in the opposite, like what is the belief that I need to have? What is the belief that someone that is financially successful, that is financially free? What is that mean?
You clear the old codes and you bring in new codes through affirmations. Is that correct? More or less?
Wrote them down, write them down, and then one after the other until it's fully, you know.
So it seems like aspects of inner work. Now, what resistance did you face, whether internal or from the family? Because there's anybody that studies systems analysis will tell you it's like white blood cells. Anything new energetically usually gets attacked because the system wants to keep its entropy and its dynamic consistent, right? Back to
Yeah.
what kind of things what resistances did you face? In other words, were there any relapses in doing this?
Uh,
Or any family members going like you're nuts, or I mean, because again, this is,
oh,
I think, relevant to the audience because we face this in the inner work, and when we grow, I can only imagine it shows up in the wealth. I'm curious.
yeah, no resistance to family. I think a big part became becoming a communicator around that and having conversations that really weren't had. So the
Ooh.
stress might have been apparent. The conversations were not. The conversations around money, around wealth, around where people are, how we're feeling about it weren't really part of the daily. And becoming comfortable having those conversations was, I think, critical to my growth. And some of it happened through people that I've met, like being a lot more open and honest. And then in my own career, being able to have conversations, being able to lead dialogues, being able to have people trust me in the capacity that my grandfather didn't have, continue to fulfill on it. Like I could bring this to other people, bring
That's
this stuff.
interesting because I could attest that's one of the biggest things I've learned from you. If I were to boil it down and simplistic terminology and say, if only this, let's say, yeah, you made me more comfortable having conversations around money. I mean, more and more, it seems like a lot of the undertone or undercurrent or an axiom of what we're talking about at a technical level is going within, bringing awareness, clarity to it, and then bringing it out, whether that be writing the analysis down, doing the economic viability, or in this instance, what we're speaking to, starting to talk about the hidden things that are plaguing the family tree in terms of money, wealth, worth, and value, which is normalizing it, right? It seems
Right.
like you started to then practice building a muscle because so many people, my family came from scarcity, all sorts of similar patterns. I mean, it's the Middle Eastern thing. It literally then I didn't change it until I met people like you. You're a big factor in that. Going like, Haas, how much debt do you have? Haas, how? I didn't want to look at that stuff. I'll confess, I'm a guinea pig to everything you've been saying. Yep, it showed up for me. I sense many of the listeners can attest to that too. And so then it's like, oh, and now you're talking about in my family, we have more conversations about money. Would you say that's the difference in terms of contrast that in other words, let me ask it in a question. Would your grandfather from
How are we talking about money, right? Like,
Oh, interesting.
not just, and what are we really talking about? So many times the messages are not interpreted clearly, or,
You're
someone,
talking about intentionality, your higher intentionality in the communication then.
yeah, and really getting clear about intentionality, about reactivity to what's being said, like, in our own household, right? Like, um, my wife could go to some friend's house and it's like, oh, they just redid their kitchen and it's beautiful, right? She might not be coming back home and saying it like, I hate our kitchen and we got to renovate our kitchen and, you're not providing for, it's like, how are we talking about it? How am I receiving messages? Where are we coming from when we're having these conversations? How do we be, more explicit about what our wants are, what our needs are, and like,
More clarity, more intention. Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because so much is unpacking on the subject of how these family experiences, these early life experiences shape the values, the worthiness, and poverty consciousness, scarcity mindset, however you want to talk about it. It's fascinating because we haven't spoken to this. I'll bring it up now. This notion of, curses. Many people have heard of curses and it's such taboo, weird. Oh, that's gobbledygook. If we simply boil it down to what we've already talked about from an energetic perspective, that it's nothing more than an inherited limiting belief and a negative one at that, that plagues these families because now the epigenetic research I'm sure you've learned about too, and it's becoming commonplace in the world, that it comes through our bloodline. And we literally inherit, much like alcoholism is learned behavior or adopted and inherited. We inherit these curses. So I invite the audience to, and Matt, equally, probably the first time you're hearing something like this, I would venture to say both you and the audience, because that's what dropped in yesterday. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And here we are talking about it. And I would say, thank you for your vulnerability that I would say that seemed to be what was prevalent in your family somewhere. Now, let me take this back. Let me ask it without knowing the data because I don't. Did this run in your family from the very little you may know? Have you studied your family tree before your grandfather? Did something similar happen? Or was your grandfather the first one to ever make a nut, as we say in entrepreneurial languaging, right? To make something and then get it taken? Or did that ever happen before?
yeah, it's a good question. don't, I
Another
don't,
curveball for the day.
it'd be good for me
Yeah,
to,
from the very little, take a moment. I'm
right?
curious.
Because when I think on like the other side of my family,
Or the maternal, correct. Or the maternal, on either, because the blood, Mendelian, that little Mendelian P analysis, it can come from either side. We may focus on the paternal. It could be hidden from the maternal. I'm curious if anything comes up as I ask that.
yeah, I don't know enough. I feel like that type of, business success that my grandfather had
Unique.
was unique, right? Depression era guy. Prior to that, his family was in Russia, Poland. Like, they didn't have anything. They came here with nothing. Or his parents came here with nothing, and they had to figure it out, and then, you know, built a business that was successful.
Well, let's
And
go one step further with this then. And thank you for your candor. Now, this conversation dovetails to one of the last topics or a couple of the last topics in terms of generational wealth, right? You're the guy you put me on to that Patrick, what is his name? The financial advisor guy, the show.
oh, is it Bet David?
Yeah, that guy, Armenian Persian guy. So Patrick Ben David, I heard it on his show, and thanks to you for the introduction to that show and I think I said this to you once, and you may already know this being in the industry that it's a dire thing with families that amass wealth that it used to be a little bit better and now it's getting even worse. That I think it doesn't make, if I heard the facts correct, let's say you become a multimillionaire in your grandfather's case, you make it. It doesn't make it in America, at least only in America from the facts. I don't think I think it's mainly American data. Three generations, if you're lucky. In other words, by the second generation, that wealth starts to deteriorate and
Yeah.
that wealth starts to come down. And then by the third, it's absolutely gone. I would say that's why I brought up, it may seem esoteric to the audience and to you. That's why I brought up the curses thing that dropped in intuitively to present today. Because I would say, as an energy practitioner, I'm going to put on my hypothesis hat again and say, I sense there's some of that stuff running in these families where there's an erosion of congruence, values, assessment. So let's start to turn our focus there. When you're
Yeah.
dealing with leaders, family wealth, people that want to, some of your clients that want to grow their wealth, whether they have a sudden, event, what we call a sudden, what do they call it in your industry when you have a sudden event of making money?
Inheritance or full, yeah.
Well, when you make an exit, it's like an exit. It's like there's a term in your industry. I forget it now. So it's this notion of you made money and that point, and suddenly things change. You've gone past that. We've done all this. How do we talk about generational wealth? How do we keep it? How do we make this stat that's so dire not apply to us and my wealth that I'm building as a legacy?
Yeah, for sure. And so this comes down to values, having family governance, family constitution
Talk to
that
us
is,
about that. What is this? All new terms to me. And I sense a lot of people that may be listening.
yeah, absolutely. So family values are something that can be created, whether it's around, certain money values or our own family. Do we value contribution? Do we value freedom? Like, what are the things that family values, and how do
Well,
we
that
create?
that seems simple enough because it seems like an extension of the what really matters to you instead
Sure.
of individual for the ecosystem. Talk to me about constitution. As a
Yeah,
lawyer, I'm like, your family, that's a thing?
yeah,
Unpack that. What is that?
yeah. So, I mean, a constitution is basically your own family's kind of governing document about how your wealth will be used, what the purpose of it is, how we live our life, how we spend our money, how we invest our money. Um,
And this becomes an
what,
enforceable document? How
it
does this
becomes something.
work? Unpack this some more. How does this operate? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So
So, I
I
mean,
make
it's
a hundred
something.
million. I'm the client. I make 100 million. I come to you. I want this to stay in my family, and I don't want to be that stat that Patrick Ben David talked about from these conferences on wealth that dies out. What do we do, Almighty Illumination Wealth Guru?
Yeah, there's going to be family meetings that are going to be had,
Okay.
to help to
Get to the
so
values and what matters. That
the
stuff.
values. There's going
Okay.
to be family meeting. There's going to be education, right? We got to do financial education to the next generation. Then we got to be able to transmute the values in the Constitution, or we got to help the matriarchs of the family to create it, right? How do they want to express? How do they want to express the wealth? How do they want to maintain it? What do they want it to be used for? What and how does that get
So
expressed?
slow down. So you bring them in, values, and then education, then constitution. Elaborate on the education piece. What does that look like? What are they educating on? What do we need to educate
Oh,
our generations on?
yeah, I mean, some of it's going to be the basics, basic money management, right? Just the day-to-day blocking and tackling of money management, of having a budget, of how to invest, of living within our means. And a lot of the reasons why things go awry in generations is you have the one that came from nothing or very little, live within their means. Their principles were to be scrappy, to build something, to you know to save, to invest. G2 might be some part of that journey, might be part of the family business in some way, shape, or form. So some of that might have rubbed off on them. G3 is far removed from that of G2 is not part of it. And now G2 grew up with I would say wealth that G1 never had. So things are just
Mm.
easier. they get to spend more freely. At the same time, if they don't have the basic
Which is
skills,
why you do the education piece. I make sense. And G2 being second generation and G3 third generation.
for
So
sure.
values, education, constitution, and I interrupted your flow.
And the overall like estate plan needs to be part of this, right? Like
So the
there's
constitution, does that become enshrined into the estate plan or how does that operate?
various ways it can be. Yes, it's not necessarily legal.
Correct. It's
It's
like a guide. It sounds like what you're talking about is like a guiding document.
a guiding document. It's a guiding document. Within the estate plan, there can be structures that, yeah, allow people to create rules around how wealth is transferred, how it's spent, under what conditions G3 gets access to funds, can use it for business, can use it for home purchases, can, you know, have to use it for charitable intent or endeavors. Like it can be written in, and there's going to be systems and structures in place for that.
Wow. I mean, that again, we're back to this theme of bringing more awareness, more clarity, more consciousness, enlightenment, right? To bring the light in or illuminate, which makes more and more sense as we unpack this. That, yeah, you got to educate your family, the next generation. I love what you put it because the culture is going to be different in that G2, as you said, right? They're going to be proverbially the silver spoon generation. They're going to have the wealth enshrined growing up versus the first generation. I think that's what happens, which is where maybe the education piece and it's almost like building blocks. How long has this type of a framework been around?
I
Do you
think it's,
know?
I mean, you mentioned some of the family offices or the Rockefellers and whatnot for
The
like,
institutions, you generally. How, okay, let me rephrase that
I
question.
don't think it matters
Yeah.
what level of wealth you're
Well,
at.
well, you're beating me to the punch, so you're intuiting what I was
Matter.
about to ask. How common is this becoming and not mega rich? Like, are we going to see this
Well,
more and more?
believe so. Yes, I believe so because I believe the industry is evolving from manage my money to, help me live my life, like help me live a better life. And so more values infused planning is showing up. And so I believe we'll start to see it. I hope so. I hope more people adopt it where it's not purely quantitative financial planning, purely ROI. It's about what's the returns on the entire financial life. And I believe that it'll be more common. It takes work though. This isn't the magic. Like, oh, I'm going to put it in this account and I'm going to have all my problems. Like, we got to do the work. I can't do this for Haas,
Hmm.
right? How can I help facilitate this and give you the space and
Well,
hold you accountable to working through it?
that's brilliant right there. Sorry to interject. Would you say that's another problem? That's like do it for me, and they're not all of what we were unpacking, all this inner work that you as a holistic financial life planner are going to bring forth is not going to be done. So then those internal shifts I'm sensing won't happen. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Which is probably why then that's another flaw in the industry. It's kind of like, I got you your financial plan. Here you go. Thank you, advisor. See you later.
Right. And if you think about the financial intelligence and financial empowerment, hey, I got a guy managing my money, right? Well, what happens something to that guy? I want our clients to be financially empowered. So it's not my plan. It's their plan. I might help them execute and fulfill on it. It's their plan, not mine, right? And
Well,
so
it's
many other.
your worth, your financial freedom you're trying to build.
Right.
Yeah.
In most of the industry, it's some other broker's or
Mm.
advisor's plan that's showing up for the client. And we see it completely differently.
It's got to be
However, it
yours.
requires engagement with the client.
It's got to be yours. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it's funny that they wouldn't do it that way. I mean, because so many people are automating it and or other ways. Yeah, it's interesting. So in terms of this last thing for do-gooders, this people that are more mission driven, do you see, because I learned this, well, two things. One, when you said what you said a moment ago, the thought that dropped in is they say that any good business owner should know what their consultant is doing. I would say that's what you kind of brought out. Is if don't hire a consultant, even if you're not a business owner, to do your wealth planning, because if they drop dead, the theory is that then you can at least understand what the consultant did for you. In this instance, I love that term. I've never heard it really before, financial intelligence. To have it, understand it, so that if God forbid, and making it your own is what I keep hearing from you. Is like really got to adopt it. It's got to be yours. It's got to come from you. Values can't be put onto you. I got to understand all of what we brought out in this couple of hours already together. So that seems to be very important. Now, for the mission-driven people, I'm curious, any tips, any final things in terms of what you've seen from the few you have run into and or maybe interacting with me as one of those guinea pigs, in terms of what things they don't consider or what things they don't value? Because for me, I learned this from you in part, and then it grew over the years that financial freedom to me means that money is an instrument. It's not the end goal. It's the means to the end. It helps me then achieve my mission. And that was a huge reframe for me in the last decade, which you were in part inspiring or kindling that epiphany. How can you speak to that? That's the question I have for you. Any parting words in terms of the do-gooders that may still be listening, have ventured the last hour and a half, and their eyes are glazing over, talking about the money and the math and the things they don't necessarily want to confront? Any final tips to maybe convince those stragglers, late adopters that may be listening out there? Why should this matter to them if they're mission driven, if they don't necessarily consider money important?
Yeah, for sure. I would ask them like if I would reverse it. Like if how are you going to make the biggest impact? How are you going to fulfill on your mission if this is something that's not taken care of for you, right? How much space is it going to take up when there's problems that show up because you haven't taken care of this? And if it wasn't an issue, how much bigger of an impact could you make on the world? And so I
That should
don't
have been
see,
your mic drop right there. Woo! Keep going, keep going, keep going.
yeah. So I don't see how one cannot fulfill and make the biggest impact without having all this in place because it's a whole mental space.
So you're
Some,
inviting in a reframe to
yeah,
focus not on the wealth reframe, and that has been this entire conversation is what does this mean to you? So it's all another wording for is a reframe. Is take it instead of it meaning this, what if it really looked like this? Which I sense would then increase the prioritization, your resonance, and I'd be more palatable, I would say, to those people then.
absolutely. Undoubtedly. It exists, right? This topic, money, wealth, your your ability to, to produce, like it's there no matter what. And so how do we see it as a tool to make a bigger impact in the work that we're doing, in the life that we want to live? And so
It's there. Don't be ignorant of it because ignorance is not bliss, it sounds like. It sounds like the awareness, the value-based analysis, starting to get to this and really making it your own and understanding what does worth mean to me? What value am I going to charge? Or, all of this very vital. Last curveball before we get into this, walking us through some of this unpacking. I sense there'll be some of variations of what we've done as me as the guinea pig. You already kind of hit the nail on the head of where we see the industry going. I'm curious because it's such a hot topic. If you can speak to it, if not, the role of AI crypto, specifically crypto, which is in part kind of funded by or the underlying technology is AI, blockchain. It kind of goes hand in hand, et cetera. Where do you see the future of currency and wealth with crypto now in the market? You spoke to where you see the industry kind of going or hoping and trusting where the industry will go more value based, more like this holistic, more financial life planning. Where do you see the role of crypto, decentralization, all this hot topic stuff that people are throwing around right now? And I'm not saying you're an expert. I'm curious, shooting from the hip. Where do you see all this playing out? What do you see happening in terms of consumers, investors,
yeah,
monetary as a whole, any and all?
yeah, no, I'm going to caveat, I'm not the expert in
Not an
crypto.
expert. Disclaimer: Matt is not
Yeah.
giving you financial advice. He's not an expert, etc. Yeah, yeah.
I, to me, there's going to continue to just be adoption, over time. It's not a currency yet. It's still
Speculative, right?
speculative. It's not being used predominantly in day-to-day transactions, and it's not completely a store of wealth despite the appreciation that's been seen. So there's technology is changing so fast. However, we're seeing decisions being made at governmental levels of of adoption. We're seeing the adoption on Wall Street with this further and further to where there's now, exchange traded funds, and the products are becoming more accessible for the average person to have it in their
Will we
portfolio.
will we end up without currency, in other words? Do you see that happening? And is this going to be adopted to the point where, this proverbial fear that some of the fringe people have, the mark of the beast, and we're all going to be, I mean, do you see our society and the world going towards a whole revolution of money and what money means and what could that look like? Because I sense crypto is like an atomic bomb. It's like a game changer. It's
It is.
decentralization is the hot topic of it. Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, you've got all these, central banks across the world that want to retain their power, right? So like it's not going to be something I don't believe that happens overnight because people where
It's a
there's money
system
there's
change.
power. Yeah, it's complete system
Do you
change.
feel it's fathomable in the next few 50 years? I mean, is that in your field of content? Do you sense that you would predict, that could happen, that we go fully digital
I
currency?
believe so. I mean, I believe that we have to, for me to not be able to like move money out of my bank on a Saturday in this day and age is like
Mhm.
to have the restrictions around our own
Interesting.
money. It's just
Interesting.
insane in today's world, right? And so, the old protectionist system is being eroded.
Hmm.
Now, it doesn't mean that the dollar won't exist or there might be some
It'll
other
be in a
different
new form, is where I was
different form,
curious, and it
right?
sounds like you're saying yes.
Yeah, I believe that there's likely,
We're
yeah,
going to
it's
transform and transcend where we've been, so to speak, in these constructs. It sounds like.
absolutely, absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, it's very fascinating. I mean, where we're going to be headed as a collective, because yeah, I mean, if you were like 100 years ago, where it was like gold backed, and you
Right.
only had gold, and there's and the dollar was or no, and so much has already evolved since then with Bretton Woods, all these different monetary policies and shifts and whatnot. Cool. Well, are you comfortable guiding me as the guinea pig to kind of bring us to the home stretch, if you're okay with it, in terms of we wanted to bring an exercise forward, kind of stretch Matt here and bring him into the full spiritual woo-woo space of the Vulnerable Power Show. So he's known me, he's walked me through different stuff, never like this. So it's a combination of me inspiring him and saying, look, do what you do with VIPs and in rare instances on camera and kind of stretch yourself. So how can I support you in getting us going with me as the guinea pig?
Yeah, for sure. So instead of writing something down, I think going back to what we touched on earlier, I would have you close your eyes for a second,
Alrighty.
and I want you to think about an experience um, with money inside of your family that you had growing up. What was something that you heard? What was something that somebody said, someone in your family said to you?
Right off the bat, I can tell you, I had hardworking immigrant parents. I would say it's what jumps out is there was a fight very early. I was probably under 10 years old, and it was around not having enough, the lack of resources. In fact, my dad, if I remember correctly, was almost killed by his business partner. They were collecting recycling materials. So it was like a shock and awe, to use those words, around money. Shock and awe around money. Those are the words that are imprinted to answer your question. Yeah.
And what did that experience do for you?
Didn't want, this is very, wow. Okay. Already getting profound. Good job. I would say I didn't, now I can see it more clearly. This is why I didn't want to talk about money. It was almost like the whole confront thing that you brought up. It's like, I don't
Mhm.
want to see this because there's too much trauma or terror energy around it. That's what's coming forward.
Yeah. And so was there a specific belief about money that,
Money
you
is
know,
not, money is the root of all evil. Not exactly those words. That was the
Sure.
imprint because that's a very powerful. Whoop! I hit my camera, the mic. I would say that colloquial term that everybody uses is encapsulates what the belief that it caused that you asked about.
Mm.
Yeah, money is not good. Money causes problems.
Money causes problems. More money, more
More
problems.
money, more problems. Notorious HASS. There you go.
You're not alone in that, right? And so many people's parents have said that. The more money you have, the more problems there are, or money, doesn't grow on trees in a family. And, where I would want you to sit with is like, is this belief that money is the cause, money causes problems serving you today?
No. And it's been something I've been working on. What you're showing me is very vividly connecting some more dots. I've
Mm,
been working through it hasn't served me. Now this that we're unpacking shows me more clearly the some of the roots or tethers, some of where these beliefs have been implanted from, so to speak. Like that hadn't seen. In other words, it was almost like I did a shotgun approach. We're now kind of cleaning up some loose ends, so to speak.
mm.
So no, it doesn't serve me, and I know it hasn't served me. Now I can see more clearly some of that stuff. Yeah. Keep going.
And so then as we think through those experiences that we've had where, money, this book hasn't served you, I would then have you think deeply about what is that experience that you want to have with money? What is the belief that you want to have? And how would you rewrite that belief where money causes problems? What would serve you in house?
Money is easeful, and money is easy. It's almost like the words, and what I'm seeing or what I'm envisioning to kind of overwrite that or kind of rewrite that or regroove that, which is what you're asking more, my terminology, I would say is I'm seeing like myself having a tribe, almost like my own family unit, so to speak, and we're conversing about money freely, and money is coming and going easily. Is what I'm seeing, and then what I'm bringing forward in terms of rewriting that belief. So money is easy. So it's almost like the money is bad. And money is problems. It's almost like money is heavy. It seems like the energy is more money's easy. Money comes and goes with ease and flows.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yes, I love that. And so, I mean, that's, where we want to take it is confronting what it did, confronting where we were at, confronting that old belief and thinking through how we want to experience it going forward and
Mm.
rewriting that belief into our own, mindset and wiring going forward.
I love that. How would you, if you were to take this one step further, how do you extend this type of work? I know I'm kind of stretching you even more here. How would you extend this in terms of how much I charge? Now knowing this about me on the air, and now I would say I've had the challenges of what we're speaking to, which is one of the reasons I shoot from the hip sometimes, because I'm equally in the boat that some of the viewers are, if not a lot of the viewers. Um, that I would say I was like, ooh, I'm undercharging. I think we've spoken to this in the past. Clients, when I was practicing as a lawyer, you need to charge more money. I would say I'm a premium provider. How would you connect these two dots if you were to advise me with what I'm
Yeah,
charging to take this inner work now and translate it to a very pragmatic implementation?
yeah, for sure. There's still beliefs that that need to be reworked around your own work or the value that you're providing internally. So I would go through this exercise to think what the belief is of why I can't be charging more. Like why do you feel that
So
Haas?
would my I feel like a burden tie into this?
Yeah.
Interesting. Which then hampers my worthiness, which then makes me precluded internally from charging more.
Yeah.
How often do you do this inner work with clients? Like it's not normal in your industry, I would imagine.
No, I mean,
And I
this
know I
stuff.
stretch you with this exercise. In general, I mean, you may not do this exercise per se regularly. How much of your work involves these types of concepts of the internal work for the clients?
Yeah. Um, it's not as explicit as you and I are talking.
Mm.
It's showing up or it's providing exercises or questions for them to be working on in their own time, for us to be probing during conversations around goals.
Would you
So
like to see it more? I know earlier you kind of hinted you would like to see forecasting what you'd like to see. Would you say it would be helpful that more practitioners
yeah,
bring this type of work
oh,
forward?
absolutely. I think the behavioral psychology, emotional aspects are vital to business, to wealth management, undoubtedly. And I think it'll continue to be more prevalent as we grow, for sure.
Beautiful. Any parting words? Any final things for the audience on anything you do, financial freedom, anything that you feel inspired? If nothing, that's cool too.
Yeah, no, I just appreciate the opportunity to be part of this, to be able to learn from you over time, to be able to be stretched and pushed in new ways that allows me to, open up, my, the work that I do in different ways with our clients. It's an honor to be able to be a
It's a
partner with our clients.
mutual honor. You're only getting started. You've stretched a lot over the years, and it's an honor. Truly, it's an honor. And really, what I appreciated about, and I still appreciate about you, is your humility and your growth mindset, which is probably what you're really is a theme of the undercurrent of today, right? Having a value, growth, worthiness mindset around wealth, around money. So thank you, Matt. Thank you for being here. Thank you for both bringing your heart and soul forward and also sharing your genius and what you do and how it can empower others, because we trust that you all listening have a greater understanding of bringing consciousness and deeper awareness to money, wealth, finances, value, worth. And we trust that a lot of the practical tips, the ways that Matt's brought these insights forward to optimize not only your self-worth, how you view value, to bring that depth of awareness, that clarity, that insight forward for you all. And thank you all for being here. Thank you again to Matt. We trust that you are going to check out the link and find out more about his firm below. And we look forward to seeing you again on season 5 of the Vulnerable Power Show.